Welcome back to The Talk. Dr. Chip Kingsbury is our guest today, and we're talking matters marriage and some of the reasons why it fails and why it should work. And he's trying to give us, reasons why and his own experience of what he has seen over the years as he has counseled many couples. Back to the topic, Dr. and I cued into the media because there's a lot of lessons going through the media. Some of them is just for comical purposes, especially on our radio shows in the morning. And some of them have really propagated the idea that, listen, it's okay to just go away. I mean, don't tolerate this, get off. Do you think the media has been a big influence in these matters?
I'm sure it has. I think the values that are portrayed in most of the media today are not the values that support commitment in marriage. And it's understandable. It's what sells. The soap operas out there where, if you had a soap opera where everybody loved each other and the marriages were all strong and nobody was cheating on each other, nobody would watch that soap opera. You say it would be boring.
There must be drama.
Yes, yeah, they got to have the drama, right? So it sells, and it makes money for the people who produce them.
What does it do? Please go ahead.
I'm just saying it. So yes, the media actually portrays a model of how people relate to each other that's not real. It's just not real. If you put a real marriage on the screen, it would be so boring. That's why they make the shows that way. So they propagate a model of family relationships and marriage that's obviously not realistic.
Well, this is not factual, but there's a general feeling that ladies, especially, ladies love the soap operas that you're talking about. And the question would be, does this have an effect, or is it just entertainment? When they show us that in the soap opera, for example, these people separated, they divorced, then he got married to another and all that. Does that have a long-term effect, especially for the young people watching this?
I think, what you feed yourself on is going to have an impact on who you are. Wow. But I think there are bigger impacts than the music and the television you watch. I'm not making light of those because I think people should guard their hearts. Even the scripture tells us, above all else, guard your heart. What are you feeding yourself on? But I think the bigger things that have impact on how people view marriage are the marriages that these people have seen. Typically, their parents' marriage, their aunts and uncles' marriage, the marriages of the people around them as they were growing up. I think those are the kinds of things that have impact on how people view and think about marriage, much more so than watching some soap opera or watching some movie or television show where marriages are portrayed as being temporary or dissolvable at the drop of a hat. But I think people get their deep-seated worldview much more so from the lives they've lived rather than the media that they've seen. I don't want to make light of the power of media, but I just don't think it's as strong as the other. I think you're more likely to get into a marriage and your assumptions and your thoughts about marriage are going to be more molded by the marriages that you've grown up with than the marriages you've seen on the screen.
But generally, you would advise that people should be wary on what they're feeding themselves on.
Of course, yes. And that's true in all aspects of life. You're going to watch things on TV that are going to build in you an expectation that's not real, that's not based in reality. You're going to feed yourself on things that are going to make for a strong, committed marriage, a family that you're going to be proud of when you pick up your grandchild or your great-grandchild and put them on your lap and say, let me tell you about what it was like when your grandmother and I got married.
Let me take you back to the 5 issues, and one of it that you mentioned is finances. There was a research done by, McGill University of Montreal, Canada, and it was published last year in December. So it was published on our Daily Nation in January 2016. And this is what they found out, that 15% of unions in Kenya end in divorce as compared to most of its neighbors whose rates exceed 30%. That simply means for Kenya there's a lot of hope. But this is one of the reasons that they gave. This is because the increased age of first marriage signifies both greater maturity and spousal selection into more compatible unions, leading to greater union stability. Generally, to say that, because they take time to get to know each other as they're studying. And the second one was that higher education for women, with the study saying, higher education for women, with the study saying that we find that higher levels of female education are actually associated with lower levels of divorce. Does that mean people need to take time and educate themselves on this matter? Because that's what it seems to indicate.
I'm not familiar with the study you're mentioning. And I would be interesting to know how they're defining divorce. Are they defining divorce as people who went to the legal court system and got a legal dissolution of the marriage so that they're no longer married? Or that people who just said, I'm out of here, and they left and they went and found somebody else to live with? There's legal kind of definitions of divorce, and then there are what's considered in the community. Just like there's legal definitions of marriage and what's, there are people that definitely consider themselves married, and the community sees them as married, but maybe according to the laws of the land, maybe they're not technically married. My wife's a counseling psychologist, and we do a lot of marriage counseling together. We've actually had couples in our counseling room where one of them thinks they're married and the other one says, no, we're not. And there's a disagreement about whether they're even married. So those could be here. I think part of the issue here in this study, though, has to do with, we say 15% of the marriages are ending in divorce. That doesn't mean that there's 85% of happy marriages. That the people who aren't getting divorced are having wonderful, strong, happy marriages. I doubt the people who wrote that would even say that's true. That there's a lot of weak, poor, struggling marriages out there that aren't getting divorced, but their marriages are far from ideal. So I don't think we should just pat ourselves on the back and say, wow,
we're doing good.
We're doing so good. Just because people aren't getting divorced doesn't mean they're having strong marriages. And I think our goal should be, even as a nation, but certainly for people who are involved in marriage ministry like my wife and I, is to build strong marriages, not just to prevent divorce. Wow. That building a strong marriage will have that effect in the end. But the goal shouldn't be just make sure people don't get divorced, but how do we help people have strong marriages?
So one of the studies conducted say that there's a lower rate of separation among poor couples compared to rich ones. Do you have a comment on that?
Now, it said separation or divorce. That would be interesting. I would think, again, we have to ask people. The issue here is, does a married couple's socioeconomic status have impact, not so much on their separation or divorce rate, which might be an interesting statistic, but does it have impact on the contentment and the joy they're finding in their marriage? Are poor people, do they have happier, stronger marriages than rich people? That would be to me a fascinating study. I think if you're going to measure happiness in marriage by the divorce rate, I don't think that'd be a very good measure to use. Yeah. So I would rather to find out and I don't know the answer. Is socioeconomic status correlated with strong marriages? Now, one of the things when I was doing my doctoral studies, that they said socioeconomic status correlates with everything. That there's nothing, whether you like, what color you like or what toothpaste you use or whatever, that it always correlates with socioeconomic status. So that my guess would be that there might be something there. But looking at divorce rates to try to determine whether we have strong marriages may not necessarily be the best way to look at it. Because you might have a culture where people have been enculturated to believe that you don't divorce, but you get mpango a condo, or you do something else, to make yourself happy, even if your marriage is a mess.
Wow. I raised this matter of the topic today on social media, and one of the ladies said, of course it was quite a mouthful, but she said is that my opinion is that we got it all wrong with the girl-child empowerment. That was Jacqueline. Do you think women empowerment has a reason for the consequences we're seeing, not really consequences, but for what we're seeing in the state of marriage today?
I think in places where women are very much disempowered, that the divorces and separation are probably much lower. But that certainly doesn't mean that they're having better marriages. It just means that it's maybe unacceptable, or that women are trapped in bad marriages, that there's something bad going on in that marriage. They need to get out, but they're trapped. They don't have any skills or education that allow them to get a job. They're dependent on their husbands rather than in love with and building a life together with their husbands. They're stuck there. So I wouldn't say that empowerment has made for bad marriages, but I think empowerment has helped some women find ways to deal with the problems in their marriages that other women who are disempowered don't have as many options. And of course, an option that people exercise sometimes is to end the marriage, which is not something I'm suggesting, but it can happen. I think the other issue here is, what do we mean by empowerment? I'm one of these people. I don't believe that you can empower somebody. I just think that's a really foolish concept, to think that somebody can empower somebody else. The whole concept sounds like disempowerment to me. If I come to you and say, you don't have any power, but I can empower you, that makes you dependent on me. And I think that puts you into a position of disempowerment.
Yeah.
I think people can only empower themselves, and that people can facilitate that happening. You can help people to empower themselves. You can facilitate that process. But of course, the history here in recent years has been this emphasis on making sure that young ladies get education, that they go to school. I work at Daystar University. 66%, 2/3 of our students are female. So certainly, in some situations we need to start thinking about the male child. Where are they? Are they getting the education they need, and so forth? So you can always, pendulums tend to swing. For a while it was only males that ever went to school, and now it's moving so far in the other direction that we actually have to remember, hey, we don't want to leave the guys behind either. The guys need to get education and so forth.
The boy child, as you say, the people already raising the flag saying, we have neglected the boy child, especially here in Kenya. And I'm thinking that's going to bring in some social imbalance, because I had someone passionately speak about how the ladies will take over, and men will be intimidated. Listen, your wife is a top CEO and you're just a junior there. You started as juniors together because of a qualification she was taking up. I don't know, is this an insecurity that men would have, or is this something to do with the ego, or what? I just want you to throw a comment.
Well, the answer is yes. It's all of those things. It's we as males have been enculturated to believe that we're supposed to do all these things and to be on top and take care of all these issues, and that we should make more money than our spouses, and even if our spouses make money, that it's still there's my money and your money, but your money is my money, and those kinds of misnomers and ways of thinking. And I think that a lot of it has to do with the way people have been enculturated. It's not so much the books we've read, but it's just the experiences we've had that create that worldview in us.
Okay. Well, I'm afraid time is almost gone now, but I would want to ask you this. There's some certain people really fearful of marriage. They're thinking, what, I've seen my parents break up, I've seen my relatives break up, and I'm thinking this institution doesn't work. I don't even need to get married. In fact, we have ladies who are saying, I just want to get a child and raise the child, and that's it. I'll go to sperm donors. They call them that. What's your word to them? What would you advise them? Should they lose hope on this by looking at the other experiences, or what?
I would say that the fact that they're even thinking about, I don't want to get into a bad marriage, that I've seen bad marriages, I've seen what it's done, I don't want to go there. I think that's actually a healthy thing for them to think that I need to be very careful about this.
Yeah.
And I'm not just going to do it because I'm at that age where, you know, the expectations of my culture, my society is that I become a wife or I become a husband. I should be getting married.
Which is quite there, by the way.
Yes, it's very strong. I agree that people shouldn't get into marriages because of those things. I always, you know, I firmly believe that you shouldn't marry anybody other than your best friend. And if you're getting ready to marry somebody and you think, but I'm actually closer to this other person, there's someone else that I can open up to, I can talk with about things that I'm closer to, I've got a better friend than this one, then that's a huge warning sign. That's a big red sign going up and saying, wait a minute, you know, why are you doing this? At the same time, marriage is God's creation. I've been married almost 40 years, and I've got the best marriage. I've got a great wife, and we've been very happy together. And we've got a lot of passion for our marriage and for our future and the things we do. But that doesn't mean that everybody has a great marriage. Okay. But still, don't be afraid of marriage, but don't jump into a marriage because, well, I've actually had young ladies say, you know, when you ask them, when we're doing premarital counseling with a couple, so why is it you want to marry this man? And you even get an answer like, he's the first one who asked me. Nobody else asked, so, you know. And I think, you know, that's not a good reason to marry somebody. I've heard young men say, I'm going to marry this woman because she's a prayer warrior. And I said, you know, maybe your grandmother's a prayer warrior, but you don't want to marry her either. You know, that's not a good reason to marry somebody. You know, it's great that someone prays and it's got a, you know, that kind of, but that's not a good reason to marry somebody.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. So you've got to have something better, stronger than that.
So I can take your word on marrying a best friend is quite safe, is it?
Oh, it's a good place to start looking.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I wouldn't say, you know, just look around. Who's your best friend? Well, you know, get married.
Yes.
You know, that's not the point. Yeah.
Okay, I'm still mesmerized by that prayer warrior story. I wanted to give some word of hope to guys who are looking forward for marriage, guys who are preparing for marriage, already who have gotten into marriage, or are already facing some rocks in the marriage. Just some sentence that will give them hope that all is not lost. Straight to the camera.
Marriage is great. I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I've seen lots and lots of wonderful marriages. My parents were married for 64 years and gave us a wonderful example, my brothers and I, wonderful example of what a marriage should be like. And I've seen tough, really bad marriages that broke up and people were badly hurt. But this was God's creation. God wants you to have a great marriage and wants people to be able to have a wonderful families and strong families together. And it can be done. The important thing is get prepared, take your premarital counseling seriously, and then when issues arise in your marriage, don't be embarrassed or afraid to go and ask for some help. Sometimes that's what your best couple's for. You know, your best couple isn't just for the wedding day. You can go to them and talk to them and say, you know, we're struggling with this issue or this thing, can you help us? If it gets beyond what your best couple can help you with, go see some professional counselors. There's no embarrassment there. It's like when you get the flu and you go to the doctor, you're not embarrassed to go say, hey, you know, I got a problem, I need some help. That's their job. That's what they're there for. So go and see them. And stay committed to your marriage.
Dr. Kingsbury, thank you so much. Maybe I should have given you a chance to tuma salamu to your wife or something. Say hi.
Hello, Sherry. How are you? Hope you're watching.
Wow. Thank you so much for coming and for joining us. And I hope the viewers, they have something to take home. That has been the talk. Don't just get married to anyone anyhow. You know, prayer warriors and the rest of the things. But do your homework. And of course, all is not lost. If you're in a situation where you're thinking, my marriage is not working, there's still hope, as you've had it from Chip himself. 40 years in marriage, amazing. That means it can work. All the best. See you next week for another talk.